Hi everyone, I'm Lady Teddy. I'm going to be reading to you guys from Magium, which is a text-based choose-your-own-adventure game app that is free and it's on both Android and iOS. I highly recommend it. I have a lot of respect for the author. There's a lot of different paths that you're able to choose, and I just feel like it is really good. If there's anyone that would like to know what is going on, but they don't want to read it and play it for themselves. All of my previous readings are on YouTube in a Magium playlist, which you can get there. Yeah, hi YouTube. Nephilim Teddy says hi. Currently, I thought that we were still on chapter 1 of book 3, but when I went, it looks like we have started chapter 2 of book 3. So if there's anyone, I know it is in the middle of the story, if there's anyone that has any questions about who a character is or what's going on, feel free to ask. The way that this works, Twilight Witch also says hi. And subscribe. Yeah, if anyone wants to join, like, subscribe. I'm assuming that if you're this far in to the story, you probably have already subscribed. But if you haven't, please do. This is the first time I've said this for a YouTube video, honestly, so yeah. I don't exactly recall what's going on, so we'll get there. Yeah, do I have anything else that I usually say? I don't think so. I have all sound alerts turned off, so if anyone wants to redeem those, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. Let's get to it. Here it is. No, that's too small. Oh, the way that this works is, I know that a lot of people just want to relax or fall asleep, and that's totally okay. If people do not want to participate, that's more than welcome. You can just relax, there's no pressure. If there's anyone that does want to participate, whenever we get to a decision or a choice, we're doing a good smart playthrough currently, which means if it's a good or a smart decision, I will generally make the decision for everyone. If it is just conversational or directional, or doesn't seem like there's one option that weighs more than the other, I'll tell you guys what the options are and then give you guys about a minute to look into it. If no one says anything, then I will make the decision for us. If people are wanting to participate, I will go with whatever the majority of the audience chooses. Okay, so currently what's going on, it looks like the main party agreed to help the Stillwater, which is a very powerful secret mage. So the Stillwater Melindra, they agreed to help her with assassinating the King of Allendor. So they are currently they had been traveling through the forest to Allendor, encountering bad guys along the way. They finally arrived, and they were thinking that once they got there, they were planning on, like, storming the gates, pretty much, and then Melindra said that it would be easier to explain why that wouldn't work once they got there. Once they got there, they saw that there was a bunch of automated defenses in this magical world where that's not normally really a thing, so that storming the gates won't work. So now they're retreating to come up with another plan. Yes, seeking. It is a choose-your-own-adventure, so you can make choices. Is this the first time you've been here for Magium? I didn't realize that. Welcome. Okay, Melindra, Darren says, after we all retreat back into the forest so we can have another strategy meeting. I think now would be a good time for you to tell us everything you know about Allendor's defenses. We're all ears. Good, Melindra says. Although, to be honest, I don't really know a lot more than you do. I haven't spent that much time in Allendor, and it's been quite a few years since I was exiled from this continent, so a lot of things may have changed since then. Oh, right. I almost forgot that this was the reason why you wanted the King of Allendor dead, Hadrick says. What did you do to get yourself kicked out of Varathia anyways? Didn't you say that you were born here? That is a personal matter, Melindra says. I'd rather not talk about it unless it's absolutely necessary. Darren says. I still can't help but think that there's something important you're not telling us about your reason for coming back here. You don't seem like the kind of person who would go through all this trouble just for petty revenge. There has to be another reason why you would want to kill the king of this city. You're right, Melindra says. There is another reason. In short, the King of Allendor has stolen something very important from me, and I want it back. However, this isn't something you should concern yourselves with. All you need to do is help me kill him. I will handle the rest by myself. I see, Darren says. Well, as long as you uphold your end of the bargain, we will try not to meddle in your affairs then. Whatever they are. What about Allendor's defenses? Kate says. Isn't there anything you remember that could be of use to us? Perhaps some obscure weaknesses that could help us fight those golems at least? The only thing I know is that these technological advancements are relatively recent, Melindra says. Shukseokai? Welcome in, thank you so much for the follow. How are you doing today? Relatively recent, Melindra says. A few decades ago, the king has allied himself with the rogue Losathi, and it is thanks to him that they have managed to turn those old Losathi ruins into something functional. Those metal golems you saw outside were also designed by him. The reason why I wanted you to see them with your own eyes before making our plans to infiltrate the city was because I wanted you to take their defenses seriously. We can't afford to just smash through their front gates and fight our way through. We need to keep a low profile for as long as possible. That being said, we're almost definitely going to have to fight our way out after we assassinate their king. So, you should also prepare yourselves mentally for our inevitable fight against those golems when we escape the city. Hint, you will never be required to load your game any further than the beginning of the chapter in order to continue your game. Regardless of your stats, if you feel that you are stuck, try uploading from the last checkpoint and picking different choices. Okay, I don't remember that. By the way, there's stats in this game, so we can... those affect. We have some spare stats if we want to make some decisions later. But how are we supposed to sneak past those golems if they're always patrolling outside the walls? Darren asks. Do they have worse vision at night or something? No, but there's no need for us to sneak past them, Melindra says. We can just enter through their front gates the normal way. We'll say that you came here to trade some of your enchanted goods, and that the rest of us are your bodyguards or something. That should be enough of a reason for the guards at the entrance to let us in. And my exile was kept a secret from anyone but the king's most trusted advisors, so we shouldn't be worried about the guards not letting us in because of me. I think you may be forgetting the small matter of us killing the king of... I think you may be forgetting the small matter of us killing the Earl of Allendor back in Thilius, Hadrick says. I know that we've technically served our sentence with the arena, and that we have the papers from Golmik to prove it, but something tells me that this won't really stop the king of this city from executing us for murdering his brother. He won't execute you if he doesn't know that his brother is dead yet, Melindra says. Believe me, if the king knew about the Earl's death, the whole town would be in mourning. Those walls would be covered in black banners, and there would be paintings of the Earl's face pasted on posters all around the small village outside the city. Considering how normal everything seems to be, I think it's safe to assume that the ambassador has not sent any of his emissaries to let the king know of his brother's death, and he wanted to tell him this personally when he got back. Except we got here first, since we took a shortcut through the monster-infested forests. It will probably be at least another day until the ambassador reaches the city the regular way. So until then, you'll just be some random tournament participants that shouldn't be raising any suspicion. But will they let a bunch of armed strangers enter their city so easily? What will we do if they don't buy our story? I feel like either of these could be good Smartberry, so if anyone would like to weigh in, now is your chance. Otherwise, I will make a decision for us in about a minute. Alright, looks like chat has picked 2. And Twilight, the entire plan is murder. They're here to kill the King of Ollendar. What will we do if they don't buy our story? Melindra says. Well, it would be better if they thought Darren came here to do some trading, because merchants get preferential treatment in this city due to how rarely any of them bother to visit. But if they don't believe us, I suppose we're just going to have to enter the city the regular way. That would require a bit more paperwork, and it would take more time, but I doubt it can take that much longer, so I'm sure we'll be fine. I guess Melindra's plan is worth a shot, Darren says. She's the one who knows the city the best, after all. But remember, to keep your guards up. If anything gets out of control, we might need to fight our way in, so you should all be ready for the worst-case scenario. Melindra, is there anything else we should know before we begin heading towards the city? Yes, Melindra says. You should tell the guard at the city gates that you were invited into Ollendar by someone from within. That way they should just let us in faster. If he asks you who invited you, just tell him that your client wants to remain anonymous. Unless their security has gotten tighter over the years, that should be more than enough to gain us entrance into the city. Oh, and another thing. While we approach the city, you should all take care to talk in low voice, so that the people from the village can't hear us. Actually, it might be better if we didn't talk at all, unless it's absolutely necessary. The villagers and the city folk all live in fear of their mad king, and they would rat us out immediately if they found out our real reasons for wanting to infiltrate the city. Remember that we are inside enemy territory here. We can't afford to make any mistakes. Understood, Darren says. Let's move on then. When we reach the gates, I'll try to do most of the talking. Hopefully, everything will work out in our favor. After making sure that none of us had any better ideas for infiltrating Allendor, we all walked out of the forest and headed for the main road that led towards the city gates. Once on each side of the road, we could see the wooden houses of all the peasants living outside the city, who were each busy working their fields. As we walked past the farmers, a few of them glanced shortly in our direction, but for the most part, they didn't pay much attention to us and just kept going about their business. Looking at their faces, I couldn't help but notice that they had the same tired looks in their eyes as the orphans from the Beacon of Hope. It seemed as if they'd given up hope a long time ago, and they had all resigned themselves to their fates, which were no longer in their hands. We all followed Melindra's advice, and we didn't talk amongst ourselves until we reached the gates. Once we arrived close to our destination, Darren stepped to the front so he could address the guard in front of the city's entrance. "Good morning," Darren says in a loud tone to make sure that the man in front of the gate could hear him. "Are you the one that I need to talk to in order to gain access inside the city?" The guard doesn't answer him right away. He was sitting on a chair when we arrived, measuring us up and down with a rather unimpressed look on his face. And while Darren was talking, it looked as if the gatekeeper was only paying attention to about half of what he was saying. Darren waits patiently for the guard to slowly get up from his chair and to walk towards him, while two metal golems that were standing in front of the gate seemed to be studying us attentively. "What business do you have here?" the guard asks, as he stops in front of Darren, eyeing him suspiciously. "We've come to sell some goods," Darren says. "I'm not sure if you know who I am, but I am a very famous enchanter outside of Varathia. Darren, the healer in armor, is what they call me." "Never heard of you," the guard says in an uninterested tone. "Well, I can't blame you," Darren says. "This continent is pretty isolated from the rest of the world. Anyway, I have a client who wants to remain anonymous that would like to buy my wares, and I've arranged to meet him inside the city. Could you please open the gates to let me through?" Again, the guard does not answer him immediately, and he just looks at him with a frown on his face, while he is continuously chewing on what seems to be some kind of plant. I say that he's frowning, although in reality it's a bit difficult to tell if he's genuinely upset about something, or if that's just the way his eyebrows work, because I'm pretty sure that he's had them furrowed from before he even noticed us. "What's the password?" the guard says, after a while. "Password?" Darren asks, confused. "Aye," the guard says. "Password. If you were invited here by someone, then they must have given you a password. That is the only way in which you can enter the city without filing for the usual paperwork. So, what's the password then?" As the guard talks, I suddenly remember the text on that rock from Melindra's collection, which said that the password is Griffinbeak. Could it be possible that it was referring to the password required to enter the city of Allendor? The guy we were supposed to meet didn't tell us about any passwords. The password is shut your mouth and open the gate. We forgot the password. The password is a drunken orangutan wearing a party hat. The password is Griffinbeak. Well, I think Smartberry would definitely pick this one. If anyone would like to argue with me or change my mind, I would... Now is your chance. You guys have about a minute. Yeah. I'm gonna rest my voice, so... Well, no one tried to argue with me over what smart, good berry. Oh yeah, Twilight. Considering we're playing a smart, good playthrough, we're probably not gonna go with your choices ever. But you could always do your own playthrough, because Evil Berry is a thing. Because Smartberry would definitely pick, if he's gotten information on what a password might be, he would probably go with this one. I guess it could be argued that he wouldn't guess, but this isn't really guessing. So. Yeah. The password is Griffinbeak. No, it isn't, the guard says. I'm not sure if you were guessing randomly just now, or if somebody actually misled you. But if you want to enter the city without knowing the actual password, then you're going to have to file for the required required paperwork like any other outsider. And what do we need to do to file these papers exactly? Darren says. For the moment, you don't need to do anything, the guard says. I will send someone later today to obtain all the necessary permissions from the higher-ups, and then we'll bring you some papers to sign. This usually takes a while, though. You could try checking back tomorrow, but I wouldn't get my hopes up if I were you. People rarely get their entrance papers earlier than 3 days after their arrival. 3 days? Darren says, a little too loudly, but then he quickly calms himself down. Oh. Alright. I understand. In that case, we'll be going back to our camp, and we'll return tomorrow. Maybe we'll be lucky and there will be some news for us. Have a good day, and thanks for your help. The guard nods at Darren, and then we all head back towards the woods where we came from, without saying a word. It's only after we are safe away from the villagers that Hadrick's voice suddenly explodes, as if all the pressure had been building up constantly the whole time he had to keep himself from talking. 3 days? Hadrick shouts. Did you hear that, guy? The ambassador will have arrived 3 times by then. We may as well break through their front door right now. At least that way we'd get the element of surprise. Using brute force is our absolute last resort, Darren says. Didn't you see those golems? Those are just one of their many defenses. Who knows what else they will be pulling out of their sleeves while we try to fight our way to the palace. Anyway, it's not like we're completely out of options. We just found out that we need some sort of password to get in. All we need now is a plan to find out the password, and we will be right back on track. Maybe we could obtain that information from the villagers somehow, Layla writes. I'm guessing that the farmers should know the password, since they would need to enter the city on a daily basis to shop for supplies. Layla makes a good point, Aluna says. We could try to bribe one of the villagers. I'm guessing that it shouldn't be too hard to find someone willing to break the rules for some extra money in a village full of impoverished people. It's not as easy as you might think, Melindra says. This city isn't like Thilius. Breaking the law here may well get your entire family murdered. Or worse. Most people wouldn't take that risk, no matter how much money was at stake. What if we tried to get one of them drunk instead? To be honest, I agree with Hadrick. We should just smash through their front gates. I could try to eavesdrop on someone from afar. Requires hearing 4, which we have hearing of 4. So, I feel like Smart Barry would absolutely pick this one, since he has the skill. If anyone disagrees with me, now is your chance. I am going to give y'all a minute to argue with me because I need to rest my voice. Thank you for the stretch and the hydrate. And Twilight Witch, no worries. The purpose of this is to make people sleepy and fall asleep. So thank you for hanging out. Thank you for participating and being here. And I hope you have a lovely night. Sweet dreams. Alright. Hearing check successful, level 4. I could try to eavesdrop on someone from afar, I say. There's bound to be some villager who needs to get into the city eventually. That's actually a really good idea, Darren says. But how far would you need to be to hear the words properly? Can you hear the guard at the gates talking from all the way over here? Because we can't just have you wandering around aimlessly through the village until someone happens to want to enter the city. You would look too suspicious. It's all right, I say. I won't need to enter the village because I can hear what most of the villagers are talking about from inside the forest. I usually ignore voices that are all in the background because it's too difficult to focus on what each individual person is saying. But if I concentrate really hard, I should be able to tell if someone is planning to head for the city gates, and then I'll be able to get a little closer. Well, don't strain yourself too much, Darren says. We wouldn't want you to tire yourself out before we even begin to infiltrate the city. Yeah, I know, I say. I won't go overboard. Be right back. I'll try to get as close as I can to the edge of the woods, so I'll be able to hear as many of the villagers' conversations as possible. I then walk all the way to the end of the forest, and I hide behind one of the trees to make sure that nobody from the village can see me. I spend the next few minutes trying to concentrate on hearing what each individual person is saying, although, given how many people seem to be talking at the same time, this is by no means an easy task. Most of the conversations are about mundane stuff, which is not useful to me in any way, though I can't help but notice that most of the people are talking in a very tired tone, and that almost all of them seem to have a very pessimistic attitude, no matter the subject of discussion. Sometimes, an isolated husband would vent his frustration towards the king or the city guards to his wife, but then he would suddenly stop out of fear that someone might overhear him. Otherwise, the discussions of the villagers revolved mainly around their daily activities, and they wouldn't really talk about much else. After listening to hundreds of conversations for about 10 minutes, I finally luck out and hear one of the villagers is planning to head into the city in order to go shopping for supplies. I immediately walk out of the woods and begin to follow the road towards the city gates at a slow pace, while trying to identify the man whose voice I heard earlier. It doesn't take me that long to figure out who it was, because not far from me, I can already see a guy pulling a wooden cart behind him who is heading in the direction of the city. I pretend to look around for a signpost while I give the man with the cart enough time to distance himself from me, and then I begin to slowly walk in the direction of the city as well, to make sure that I don't let the man walk out of my hearing range. I don't know how to pronounce that. Oswald Rodriguez? Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. I hope you are doing well tonight. As soon as the man reaches the gates, the guard asks him for the password, and the villager responds to him with gargoyle wings. This was apparently the correct answer, since the gates in the distance are now opening, and the golems are moving aside to make way for the man to pass. Once the gate closes back up, I pull out my transceiver and set it to Darren's frequency so I can tell him what I found. Hey Darren, can you hear me? I tell him as I begin to head back in the direction of the forest. Yeah, Darren says. What happened? Did your plan work? It did, I say. You can come out now. I'll be waiting for you on the main road, close to where we walked out of the woods the first time. All right, Darren says. We'll be right there. Not long afterwards, I meet up with Darren and the others, and then we all begin heading for the city gates together. However, just as we are making our steps Just as we are making our first steps, we hear an unfamiliar voice calling to us from inside the woods. "You there, humans," the voice says in the common language, but with a broken accent. "Don't go inside the city just yet. We have some important information you might need. Information regarding the password required to go past the gates. If you're interested, then come back inside the forest and we can talk." As I try to figure out who is speaking to us, I realize that I can sense some very weak and heavily suppressed auras coming from behind the trees. Although I would have had no chance to notice that they were there without knowing in advance where to look for them. Judging by their sizes and by the sound of the broken accent from earlier, my assumption is that we are dealing with a group of goblins. "Araka," Aluna says, "why didn't you notify us that we were being followed by goblins?" "What kind of question is that?" Araka says. "Do you also want me to tell you about the squirrels in the trees and the birds in the sky? You asked me to tell you about enemies that might be trying to surround you, and that's what I've been doing. These goblins are obviously harmless. They're barely armed, and you can see for yourselves how weak their auras are. If I stop to tell you about every single animal or monster in your vicinity, we'd never get anywhere." But were they already in the area when we arrived, or did they follow us here?" Aluna asks. The goblins have been following us since earlier this morning," Melindra says. "I thought everyone knew about them by now. It didn't seem like they wanted to fight, so I just let them be." "And how exactly do you know that they are not scouts of Tyreth?" Darren says in a low voice in order to make sure that the goblins cannot hear him. "They could have been leaking information about our location to the dragon for all this time." "So what?" Melindra says, now lowering her voice as well. Tyreth's elite troops have already proven to you that they can find you no matter where you hide, scouts or no. How does letting a few goblins live make any significant difference?" "Humans," the goblin's voice calls to us again from inside the forest. "Are you coming or not?" Suggests that we ignore the goblins and head for the city. Suggests that we go kill the goblins just to be safe. Suggests that we go try to talk to the goblins and see what they want. I feel like Goodberry would definitely pick this one. Smartberry might pick this one. We already know it, so it could be argued for this, but Goodberry would definitely pick this one. If anyone would like to argue with me on why I shouldn't pick this one, now is your chance. Otherwise, we will make this decision in about a minute. Okay. I think that we should talk to them and just see what they want, I say, also in a low voice. Just because they're goblins it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a part of Tyrath's army. And what if they are? Darren says. Then we'll just have to deal with them accordingly, I guess, I say. Still, I don't see any reason why some scouts would be calling out to us instead of just keeping their distance. And I doubt they'd want to fight us since they are far too weak to have any hope of winning against our group. It's not like they would have had any time to set up traps either, since we only just came from the forest. I'm just saying, it wouldn't hurt to go see what they want. They did say they knew something about the password, after all. Fine, Darren says. I suppose we'll be seeing if they're hostile or not soon enough. But make sure you keep your guard up. We don't know what tricks they may have up their sleeves. Yeah, I say, as we begin heading back towards the forest. We're coming, I tell the goblins. Stay right where you are. As soon as we get back inside the forest, we see that the 3 goblins who called out to us are all wearing very cheap-looking leather armor, and that the weapons they are using seem to be in very poor condition. The older one of the 3 goblins is now stepping to the front in order to introduce himself. Greetings, travelers, the old goblin says in the common language as he takes a short bow. I know that you're busy, so I'll try to keep this brief. We couldn't help but notice that you had some trouble entering the city earlier, so we thought that we could trade you some valuable information regarding the password you need in exchange for one of the items in your possession. First things first, Darren says, do you work for Tyrath or not? The king of all dragons? The old goblin says, no, we've never been a part of his army. So you're with Furon, then? I ask him. No, we travel alone, the goblin says. The reason why we came here to this city is because we know for a fact that they accept goblins inside their walls, along with other humanoid monster races. So we wanted to see if we could request shelter within their borders. Oh yeah? Darren says. If that's the case, then why have you been following us since this morning? Why not just head directly for Allendor when we were still camping? The goblins exchange a few looks before the old goblin speaks again. We've been following you since we noticed your companion over there picking up some rocks on the bank of a river, the old goblin says as he points towards Melindra. The problem is that a friend of ours was supposed to write the password required to enter Allendor on one of those rocks. But we think that your friend may have picked it up by mistake. We would therefore like to share some information regarding the password with you in exchange for that rock. None of the rocks I picked up had anything written on them, in either common language or the goblin language, Melindra says. I can't understand the goblin language, but I'm pretty sure I could recognize what the writing looks like, and I saw nothing of the sort on any of the stones I picked up. Could you perhaps give us the rocks? Could you perhaps give us your rocks so that we could look at them as well? The old goblin says. If we look at them more closely, it's possible to find something you missed. Try to touch any of my rocks, and I will use a wind blade to cut you right in half, Melindra says with a polite smile. I see, the old goblin says, trying to remain calm. Well, perhaps you could hold them yourself and just show them to us one by one, then. No, I'm not going to do that, Melindra says, still smiling. Hold on a minute there, Melindra, I say. I know for certain that I saw some words written in the goblin language on one of your rocks. It was on one of the rocks they were showing flowers shortly before we reached the city. Oh? Melindra says with a puzzled expression on her face. Which one? I think it was the rock that was somewhat purple colored and that you could easily fit it in your palm, I say. The engravings were pretty small, but you could see them if you looked carefully. Melindra says as she takes off her backpack and then pulls out a small purple rock and then pulls a small purple rock out of it. This one? She then stretches her arm towards me so I can take a better look at the rock she is holding in her hand. Yes, that's the one, I say. Do you see those odd-looking scratches over there? Those are symbols from an older dialect of the goblin language. Oh, it was an older dialect, Melindra says as she takes a good look at the rock in her hand. That would explain why I didn't recognize this as a form of writing. My apologies then. Here, you can have the rock if it was originally yours. She then hands the rock over to the old goblin, and he begins to study it closely. Oh, I understand, the old goblin says. It would appear that the password for this week is gargoyle wings. Thank you. That is all we needed to know. What do you mean, gargoyle wings? I ask him confused. Doesn't that writing say griffin beak? I see that you can read our old dialect, the goblin says, surprised. Quite impressive. As for your question, the symbols describing the password can indeed be directly translated as griffin beak. But we have a code with our friend. But we have a code with our friend that we always use when we transmit messages to each other. If we rearrange these symbols according to our secret code, the meaning of the words changes completely and reads as gargoyle wings instead. Do you understand now? Yeah, I guess that makes sense, I say. So, was this the information you wanted to give us in exchange for the rock? No, actually, the password in question was about the fact that the password is not the only thing required if you want to enter the city, the old goblin says. You also need to wink 3 times with your left eye while saying it, or they won't let you in. This was added a while ago as an extra precaution, in order to prevent eavesdropping. The passwords change every week, but the number of winks do not change as far as I'm aware. Now that is indeed something we did not know, I say. We'll keep that in mind. Thanks. Excuse me? Melindra says to the goblins, with this time adopting one of her more pleasant smiles. Would you perhaps be interested in a trade for that purple rock with the scribbles on it? I really took a liking to it and would hate to lose it from my collection. Pardon? The old goblin says, as he is suddenly reminded of the rock that he is still holding in his hand. Oh, you can take the rock back. You can take back the rock. All we needed from it was the password. That is very generous of you, Melindra says, as the goblin hands her back the rock. Many thanks. Well, now that our business is done, I believe that it's time we head towards the city, the old goblin says. It might not be the best idea for us all to go at once, though, as we may seem suspicious. You can go first if you want, and then we'll be following you soon afterwards. Sounds good, let's go. It's fine, we're not in a hurry. You can go first instead. I feel like Goodberry would definitely pick this one, since it's wise to make sure the information is accurate. However, if anyone would like to argue with me why smart Goodberry would pick the other one, now is your chance. Otherwise, we will pick this one in a minute. Okay, let's go with number 2 then. It's fine, we're not in a hurry. You can go first instead. Very well, the old goblin says. In that case, we will be off. Take care. Good thinking, Barry, Hadrick says, once the goblins are too far away to hear us anymore. If they're the ones who go first, we won't look like idiots in case the password is wrong. I doubt the password itself is wrong, because I already overheard someone using it to enter the city. I say, I just wanted to see if their information about the winking was correct or not. Never hurts to be extra safe. We will find out about that soon enough, Darren says. The goblins don't have too long to go until they reach the gates. We wait for a while longer until we see the goblins reach the entrance of the city far in the distance. After a short discussion with the guards at the entrance, the gates are opening, and the 3 goblins get inside the city without any trouble. Well, I guess that answers our question, Hadrick says. Come on, we should get going too. We've spent enough time in this forest already. It takes us a while, but once we're done traversing the village again, we eventually reach the gates for a second time. The guard at the gates is now staring at us with the same suspicious look that he had the first time, and he addresses us as soon as we stop in front of him. I see you're back, the guard says. Should I take it that you finally managed to get that client of yours to give you the password? Yeah, we reached him through the transceiver eventually, and he told us the password, I say as I wink 3 times with my left eye. It's gargoyle wings. The guard says. That is indeed the correct password. He then gives the signal to the 2 metal golems behind him, who immediately open the large gates for us. I'm not sure what you came here to do exactly, but you'd better not cause any trouble, the guard tells us. No, sir, I say. We won't be bothering you at all. Go on, the guard says. Get moving. We all move past the guard and enter the city. As soon as we're inside, the gates behind us slam shut. What now then? Kate asks us as we get a little further into the city. Are we going to do a bit of reconnaissance, or should we head directly for the palace? I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities to study their defenses on our way to the castle, Darren says. Given that we don't really know when the ambassador will be back, I don't think we should be wasting any time exploring the city. Melindra, do you know in which general direction the palace should be? Yes, Melindra says. If the layout of the city is still the same as it was before they banished me, the shortest route would be to go through the Perillian Plaza. Follow me. She takes the lead, and we all go to follow her, while both the citizens on the ground and those flying in the metal vehicles above calmly go about their daily lives, not paying much attention to us. Layla, do you have any means of communicating with your father? Darren says. Can you let him know we're here? No, Layla writes. He did not have any items with him when we were escaping Thilius together, so I can't call him on a transceiver. Before we got separated, he promised that when I would reach Allendor, he would find a way to contact me no matter what. But I don't know how long it will take him to become aware of my arrival. Don't worry, Darren says. With all the ruckus that we will be causing inside the city soon, I'm sure that he'll find a way to us eventually. Let's hope you're right, Layla writes. As we advance through the city, I noticed that most of the houses have a very strange style of architecture, unlike most regular buildings that you would expect to see in a typical city. Some of the houses have more than four floors and are built in an oval shape. Some of them are built entirely out of glass. Others are made from metal, coated with ceridium dust. It's pretty hard to find two houses that look exactly the same, and several of the buildings honestly look like whoever designed them was just messing around. Were the buildings in the city always so weird? I asked Melindra. I'm honestly surprised that some of these structures haven't collapsed yet. There were houses like this in the city before I was kicked out, but not as many as there are now, Melindra says. They must have demolished some of the older houses in order to build the new ones on top of them. It's probably the work of Billy Bob, the rogue Lysathi that I was telling you about earlier. He kind of fancies himself as a genius in every domain, including architecture, and the king has been giving him a lot of liberties as a reward for his invaluable contributions towards the city's sudden and abrupt technological advancement. As a result, old Billy Bob has taken the opportunity of experimenting with all kinds of wild and innovative designs for buildings, some of which are a little more questionable than others. Excuse me, but did you just say this Lysathi's name is Billy Bob? Darren says. Oh, that's not his real name, Melindra says. That's just what we used to call him because his name was nearly unpronounceable. His full name is Billy Borathrathsaran. Billy Borathrathsaran. Since the first few syllables sound kind of like Billy Bob, that's the nickname he ended up with. I guess his parents really went all out when they named him. Huh, Adric says. Honestly, it doesn't sound that much more ridiculous than your typical Lysathi name. To me, Melindra says, it's just the length of it that's really exaggerated. There were just so many ways in which they could have shortened the name to turn it into something more manageable, that it just makes me think his parents simply named him like that as a cruel joke. What better way to ruin your son's life than to give him a name like that? Hey, look, a flying golem head. What? Hadrick says. Over there. Look, Melindra says as she points towards a strange contraption that is currently flying towards us. This flying golem head seems to be nothing more than a metal ball the size of a human head, with a propeller on top and a sort of large eye in the center, which appears to be illuminated by a red light. As the flying metal ball gets closer to us, it turns itself left and right so that its eye can get a good look at us, and then it begins to speak in a metallic sounding monotone voice. This unit does not recognize you, the flying ball says. Identify yourselves. Thank you for the hydrate. Oh, this brings back so many memories, Melindra says as she looks at the metal ball in front of her. I remember how Billy Bob had an obsession with these one-eyed golem heads. He wanted to make them intelligent. I believe he used to call them drones? Yeah, I think that was the name. Anyways, so Billy Bob had this dream that he could one day fill the skies with these drones of his, and that they would somehow monitor the citizens even in the absence of the city guards. Needless to say, his dream remained only a dream, and the most he managed to get out of these old relics was to get them to ask for your name. If you don't answer them, they'll keep pestering you until you tell them something. But if you give them any name whatsoever, they'll simply fly away and leave you alone. How's that for a useless invention? This unit shall not repeat itself again, the flying metal ball says. Identify yourselves or face the consequences. I am Felran, the strongest fire elementalist in the eastern continent. My name is Cutthroat Dave. My name is Barry. Stab the flying metal ball in the eye. Tell everyone that we should just ignore the metal ball and go on our way. Well, I feel like Smart Barry would not stab the flying metal ball, but not give his real name. And also not just ignore it. Good Barry would definitely not stab it. So, probably one of these two. Felran or Cutthroat Dave. Or I guess we could ignore it and keep walking since Melindra said that. So. Like just a test. So, if anyone has any suggestions, now is your chance. Otherwise, I will make a decision in about a minute. Okay. I think that I'll go with Felran because we know that Felran is dead. Oh! Sorry, you didn't answer. I can go back. Okay. If you want, I can go back. It won't take me too long to replay this. I realized I need to refresh my tabs. I mean, if you messed, it's not a big deal. It's part of playing the game. I am Felran, the strongest fire elementalist on the eastern continent. Designation acquired, the metal ball says. You will henceforth be referred to as Felran, the strongest fire elementalist on the eastern continent. Have a pleasant day. Wait. Wait, was that it? Hadrick says as the metal ball flies away. Isn't it going to ask for the rest of our names? I did say that these drones aren't exactly very intelligent. Didn't I? Melindra says. Yeah, but still, Hadrick says. Is it just going to call us all Felran from now on? Or what? Possibly, Melindra says. I have no idea how these golem heads have evolved over the years. Doesn't really matter either way. Let's proceed, shall we? After we walk for a few more minutes, another flying metal ball with a propeller on its head is slowly making its way towards us. Except this one seems to have its eye illuminated by a green light instead of a red one. The drone stops in front of us, just like the one before. It rotates left and right. So its eye can get a good look at everyone in our group. Greetings, the flying ball says in a metallic sounding voice that is somewhat similar to that of the drone from before, except that it is not speaking in monotone. This unit is called Stop asking me to, If it's not monotone, I shouldn't read it like it's monotone. Greetings, the flying ball says in a metallic-sounding voice that is somewhat similar to that of the drone from before, except that it is not speaking in monotone. This unit is called Stop asking me to name every single one of your units. Can you seriously not make up a simple name for yourself? It appears that you are trying to navigate through the city. Do you require any assistance? No, I think we're fine, I say. But thanks for asking. Processing, the metal ball says. Your group's designation is currently registered as Felran. Your group's designation is currently registered as Felran, the strongest fire elementalist on the eastern continent. Is that correct? We were being asked what our group's name was? I say. I thought we were supposed to give our individual names. Can we still change our designation after we already gave it? It appears that you would like to change your initial designation, the metal ball says. Unfortunately, it is not possible to change your group's name at this time. You will therefore continue to be referred to as Felran, the strongest fire elementalist on the eastern continent, for the time being. We apologize for the inconvenience. Hey, no problem, I say. In that case, I guess we'll be going? In order for this unit to be able to properly guide you through the city, you will first need to specify your intended designation, the metal ball says. I just told you we don't need a guide, I say. We can handle ourselves just fine. Negative, the metal ball says. All merchants coming from foreign cities are our esteemed guests. It is this unit's job to ensure that your business is conducted as smoothly as possible. However, in order to guide you, this unit will first need to know where you are headed. And what if we don't give you our destination? Darren says. Error. The metal ball says, this unit is not equipped to deal with such a scenario. Initiating experimental artificial intelligence protocol. Designation, Overseer, please stand by. Your inquiry will be answered shortly. This is ridiculous, Melindra says. Why should we just stand here and keep listening to what some brainless contraption has to say? I say we leave this sad excuse for a golem behind and go on our way, before we allow it to waste any more of our time with Overseer. Protocol now initiated, the metal ball says. Please wait. Currently analyzing situation. I think Melindra is right, Hadrick says. We should just keep going. We won't accomplish anything if we don't. Analysis complete, the metal ball says. Thank you for your patience. It would appear that your group illegally entered the city by pretending to be merchants, and you are now heading towards the palace. Is that correct? Hold on there, Hadrick says in a state of shock as he turns towards the flying golem head. What did you just... No, you've got it all wrong, I tell the Droon. We didn't enter the city illegally, we used the password. Complaint acknowledged, the metal ball says, now formulating new hypothesis based on acquired information. Listen, we don't need your help with anything, I say. All we want is for you to leave us. New hypothesis completed, the metal ball interrupts me. It appears that the method used to enter the city was indeed illegal, but the password used to get past the gates was obtained was indeed legal, but the password used to get past the gates was obtained in an illegal manner. Is that correct? No, I say. Why would you say that? We got the password legally. We were invited from someone inside the city. Based on the available information, the Overseer Protocol has concluded that your most likely objective in this city is to assassinate the King of Allendor, the metal ball says. Is that correct? No, that's not true at all. Fine, you got us. Are you happy now? I feel like good, smart berry. If someone would like to weigh in, now is your chance. Otherwise, I will make a decision in about a minute. We are here to kill the King of Allendor. It's correct. Does that change your answer? I mean, I've played the game, so I know what happens in either scenario. Okay. Achievement unlocked. I cannot tell a lie. Fine, you got us. Are you happy now? Query successfully received, the metal ball says. Please stand by. The Overseer Protocol will now try to assist you to the best of its ability. Wait, what? Hedrick says, calculating your chances of success for assassinating the King of Allendor. The metal ball says, calculation complete. Unfortunately, your odds of successfully completing such a task are very low. Would you like to hear a more detailed analysis? Sure, I say. Why not? Given your group's estimated level of strength, but the most likely outcome is that you will be defeated by Allendor's Royal Guard before you can reach your target. The metal ball says. There is, however, a scenario in which you could stall them for long enough to assassinate the king, although you would still likely be killed soon afterwards. And what is this scenario? I say. You would need to take advantage of the ever-growing tensions between the old members of the Royal Guard and the newer members who only joined recently during the Magium tournament, the metal ball says. Some of the older members are currently suspecting that the new ones only sought to be recruited to the Royal Guard so that they could gain easy access to the treasury and steal from their kingdom. The leader of the group, in particular, is always keeping an eye on the newer members, and he makes sure to never let them walk around unsupervised. If you were to generate an internal conflict within the ranks of the Royal Guard by using this information, your chances of success would slightly increase. You don't say, I tell the Droon. What about any other scenarios in which we could stall the Royal Guard? Do you have any more useful advice to give us? Unfortunately, the Overseer Protocol does not have any more information to offer you regarding this subject, the metal ball says. Keep in mind that the Overseer Protocol is still experimental, and therefore it may not always be able to give you the exact guidance you require. Since this unit does not seem to be able to provide you with any additional information, you are advised to contact one of the city guards instead, who will gladly help you if there is anything else you need. We apologize for the inconvenience. Have a good day. Well, damn, Hedrick says, as the metal ball is flying away from us. Do you suppose we can trust anything that it said? Or is this just some very elaborate trap? I don't know, but I don't like the way everyone is looking at us, Darren says as he nods his head towards the few citizens who are watching us from a distance with slightly anxious expressions on their faces. I'm not sure how much these people heard of what the golem head just said, but we'd best be moving along before we become even more suspicious looking than we already are. So, how do you reckon that metal ball figured out all that stuff about us? Hedrick asks in a low voice as we move away from the people who were staring at us. It's possible that they've been monitoring us since before we entered the city, Darren says. Melindra did say that these drones were originally built for surveillance purposes, and I will admit that I haven't really been paying attention to the sky above us since we came here. But if they knew what we were doing from even before we got past the gates, why would they let us come this far? Hedrick says. Who knows? Darren says. It could be a trap of some kind. Or perhaps their surveillance system is defective and the metal balls haven't reported us to anyone in charge yet. If anyone, it's anyone's guess, really. There's not exactly much we can do about it other than keeping our guards up and hoping for the best. It is an unknown territory for us, so we should assume that there are enemies around every corner unless proven otherwise. Melindra, how long do we have until we reach that plaza you mentioned? Not too long, Melindra says. We should probably get there in the next few minutes. Just like Melindra said, it didn't take too much time for us to get to the Perillian Plaza. And as soon as we reached our destination, we realized there were quite a lot of people gathered up there, standing in place as if they were all waiting for something. Do you guys think that there's some sort of spectacle scheduled around this time? I tell my friends as we make our way through the crowd. Could be, Darren says. They may also be waiting for some high-ranking officials to give a speech at this hour. Whatever it is, it shouldn't really concern us. Let's keep moving. All of a sudden, a very large magical holographic screen appears in front of the crowd, floating a few dozen feet above the ground so that everyone can see it properly. On the screen, we see a fat man with a gray beard wearing a crown and royal garments, who I'm assuming is the King of Allendor, a man wearing blue robes holding a scepter who is likely the city's high priest, serving the god of the seas, and an 18-year-old boy wearing pajamas, holding his hands in his pockets and keeping his eyes closed while having a polite smile on his face. Damn it, Darren says as he takes a look at the screen. Not him again. Carrot King, hello, welcome in. As if he'd heard him commenting, Eden looks straight at Darren through the screen with his eyes still closed, and he smirks at him. Did you see that? Darren says in a low voice so that other people in the plaza won't hear him. He was looking right at me when he smirked. How did he hear what I said? Do you think that they are somewhere nearby? Be serious. Be serious. Oh my gosh, I'm doing the overseer voice now. How did I used to do Araka? Be serious, Araka tells Darren. Did I see what? He didn't need to hear exactly which words you used to figure out what you were going to say. You say the same thing every time Eden makes an appearance. All he had to do was use his magical sense to figure out where you were situated in relation to the screen, and then read the fluctuations in your aura to figure out when you were done talking so he could smirk at you. You would know these sorts of things if those ex-sage teachers of yours had spent a minimum amount of time teaching you aura training exercises instead of teaching you how to pick daisies. Oh. I do the echo thing for when she laughs. Alright, if the chapter doesn't end soon, I was supposed to end stream like 5 minutes ago, so I'll probably be ending soon. I feel like we're nearing the end of the chapter, though. I swear, Melindra says, if Eden is planning to give away our position to the king after he didn't even bother to say hello to me at the arena in Thilius, I am going to strangle him with my own hands. He's not giving away anything, Aluna says. Look at the screen. They're clearly preparing a ceremony of some kind. The king and Eden are both are both staying silent while the man in robes is chanting obscure mantras and smacking the ground repeatedly with a scepter. I recommend that we ignore them and keep following Melindra towards our destination. This ceremony of theirs is probably going to take a long time. Yes, well, you see, Melindra says, the thing is that it's been a while since I last visited this plaza, and I don't really remember which way we're supposed to go from here. They've changed so many things in the architecture that nothing looks the same anymore. And it's all very confusing. Just give me a minute. I'm sure I'll figure it out. Okay, I'm gonna end here. My throat's starting to hurt and I need to end. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay. Thank you for the stretch. Okay, so thank you everyone so much for hanging out. I really appreciate y'all. We will continue this next time I get the opportunity to play Magium. I'll stop the recording here.